Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Come on in. Let me know when you're here. Let me know when you're here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Let me know. Let me know. Come on in. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Dawn, how are you doing? Can you hear me? Say something. I see your mouth moving. I don't know. I haven't added you to the stream yet, so I may not be able, you may not be able just yet. But hold on. Come on in, come on in, come on in. I see you, Mama Mitzi. I see you. All right. I see Facebook user. That means I know you're on platform Facebook, but I don't know who you are. But welcome, 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 welcome. Like and share this. Like and share this. We got a good one. We got a good one tonight. Come on in. 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 All right, I see you. I see you. We're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming a couple of places on Facebook, but we're streaming on YouTube on my Henry Razor author page. Come on, I need a couple of more people. Get on in here so we can get started. Yes. Why don't you check in? I see somebody else is coming in that I don't know, but that's okay. I'm glad to have you. I got one more minute. Hey, I see you, Dawn Callahan. I know you. Like it and share it. 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 Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. All right. All right. As soon as we get into, yeah, I see you. I see you. Okay. Okay. I am going to just put a hold on that right there. We've gotten to where we can get started here. We got a quorum here so that we can get started. Look, tonight is an awesome night. I want to say before I bring my guest in, I want to say that we are streaming. I see. Oh, Dr. Derek Triplet is on here tonight. Look, before I bring my guest in, we are streaming on quite a few platforms. What I'm trying to do is bring this down to where we just stream on YouTube, on my Henry Razor author page, and on Facebook, which is I just want to stream from one place, but I know I've got people all out. So what I need you all to make sure you do that you join this. Your purpose is your superpower group, because I'm going to be streaming. Eventually, we're going to get to the point to where we only stream from your purpose is your superpower group and YouTube. We will be streaming on YouTube on the Henry Razor author page. Now, tonight is awesome. I have with me that's my guest. She's waiting to come in here in a moment, and I'm going to bring her in. And I don't know if I can give her an appropriate introduction. She's such an awesome person, right? But when I was writing this book, and this is the book that we're dealing with. Last week we set the basis for this, but this is the book that we're dealing with. Your Purpose is Your Superpower, that book, and with the workbook. But when I was writing the book, I said, Lord, I need someone to write the forward. And I had already spoken to some pastors. I said I said, when I write this book, I want a pastor to write the forward. But the Lord, when I asked the Lord who to get to do it, her name dropped in. Her name just dropped in. It dropped in, and I said, okay. And I prayed on it a few more times. Okay. When I read the forward, I knew exactly why God did it the way He did it. And I'm going to let you know that a little bit later when we get into this conversation. But I'm going to bring in here then. I'm going to bring in Mrs. Dawn Callahan, and she is president and CEO of Artistic Solutions Revised. And I'm going to kind of yield the floor and let her introduce herself to you, and then let her, give you a little bit about what she's doing and how she's doing and what she does. And then we'll get into the conversation. Dawn, can you hear me?
I can. Thank
you. I can hear you. Okay. So to this audience here, Dawn Callahan, go ahead.
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction. I feel like I need to record it and I can just play it next time I'm doing anything. I'm just gonna hit the play button. So hi, I'm so excited for tonight. I took a nap. At my age, I gotta sleep first, make sure that my head is nice and clear. But I'm so honored to be here. My name is Dawn Callahan. I am the president and CEO of Artistic Solutions Revised, which is my company that works with executives and entrepreneurs, providing basically all the tools and techniques that they need in order to scale up their business and for them to live their purpose. So this is very fitting, and yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to get started.
All right. Well, you know what? And there's so much. I may ask you to come back next week. I try to keep the conversation here about 30-35 minutes, so that because I know people are busy and people have things to do. But when I say this, I understand now why God put you in. When I asked for somebody to write the foreword, He put it in, because in this book, Your Purpose is Your Superpower, I get into like the gritty details, right? And everything that I give, if you look at the bottom, there's a scripture, and I'm explaining this and then explaining this, and I'm putting this all together. And when I read your foreword, in one sentence, you stated in one sentence a prominent fact that everyone has to get to, and it's what I'm trying to get. It's what I'm getting people to in the gritty part of it. And when I looked at it, I said, boy, I sure wish I had included this wording exactly like this in the book. But then it hit me. It is in the book. It's in the foreword. Now here it is. And I'm going to. I want you to. You can talk it. The one thing that stands out to me is when you said you have to realize that you are where you are supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And relative to purpose. Because, sometimes we look back and we say, if I could have, this is the reason why. But you made a statement. You are where you supposed to be. Mm-hmm. If you believe it. So elaborate on that a little bit. I know that's kind of going into it right away, but I think with you, we have to go into it right away.
I tell folks, my father and I, we talk about a lot of things and we agree on most things. And the one thing that we don't agree on is regret, because I don't have any. Okay. He has a really hard time understanding. He's like, how do you not have any regret? And I was like, well, because I have faith. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it's a disrespect to have regret when you have faith in God, because if God doesn't make any mistakes, then I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And he knew where I was going to be. And so in the forward, I talk about my Christian journey, and which, I mean, and I felt God early on. And I talked to my godmother about this often, that I felt God immediate, I remember being a child, not understanding, but the journey is not it's not a paved road. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a nice clean paved road, and everyone's journey, everyone's experience is so very different. And so we're the only ones that really get in our way. God is fine. He understands, he knows, because it all fits into his plan. It's our problem is that we don't understand that we fit into his plan. And so we're constantly using our own measuring stick instead of allowing God to be our guide. And so when he says, lean not on your own understanding, that resonates with me now, now that I understand my purpose, because I can look back and I can see, and everything makes perfect sense on why it ended up this way versus ending up this way. And even when I told God that I was walking away from having a relationship with him, I told God that
Mm-hmm.
and God was like, cool, do what you got to do, because he knew that I would be back. So the thing is that if you can understand that, if you're allowing God to do what he does, and he tells me all the time, like, Dawn, get out of my lane. Like, you do what you do. Let me do what I do. If you allow God to be God, there's no reason for you to have any regret. There's no reason for you to look back and have any questions. There's no reason for you to look ahead and have any questions, because at the end of the day, it all sums up in one word, and that is having faith in God.
Okay, and I want everybody that's online, I want you to hear exactly what she's saying, and I want you to get that in your spirit, right? Because if you are a believer, right, you are exactly where you ought to be relative to what God has assigned you to do. So many times, the regret gives us guilt.
Yep.
And as a pastor, I hate to say it, but the church has specialized and has actually perfected creating that guilt in individuals, so that individuals can fall in line with what they think you ought to be doing.
That's right.
Right. And I think when I read that line, you are exactly where you ought to be. You're exactly where you ought to be. And here's something that Evangelist Sibby at our church reminds me of, a message that I preached as the Lord was bringing me into this entire thing. There was a message that I preached that called Trust the Process.
Yes.
Trust the process, right? And if you trust the process, then wherever you are in the process, some people have had medical challenges, right? Yep. That was right there. That was part of the process.
That's right.
Some people have had relationship challenges. That was part of the process. Some people have financial challenges. That was part of the process, right? It was part of the making, or and some people it break. And when she reminds me of that, you pastor, you preach that message on just trust the process. Have faith in the process. Then you don't have to have regret.
That's right.
Because you understand that God has orchestrated this, and that orchestrated these things in our lives, and we can move in that direction, and God has it. And it's hard because that doesn't necessarily align with the teaching that we've gotten from the church, but throughout the past. And I'm just going to say, it just hasn't necessarily aligned. But that's the only way that you can account for Paul being as powerful as he was at the end. And I say this all the time. Before he had a Damascus Road experience, God was orchestrating things in his life to get him to be the person that he was at the end. We don't start. I think I also preached a message from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly effective people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I brought all these things into our church over the last few years, right? The 7 habits of highly effective people. And one of the things that stood out with me is that he said, you begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now here it is. Since we don't know the end,
Mm-hmm.
we have to trust the process.
That's right.
And just get started.
That's right.
That's right. We have to trust the process and just get started. We don't know the end. But his point was begin with the end in mind. And this is how he set it up. And he set it up in such a way that impacted me. He said, imagine that you are at a funeral and there's a coffin up there at the funeral, and they open the coffin up and they say, people can come and get the final views.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so you walk up to this coffin to view, and you look and you see yourself laying there.
Mm-hmm.
He said, now, think about this. What do you want people to say about you at this time? Right? He said, so if you know what you want them to say at that time, you should be starting with that in mind.
That's all I'm saying. That's
I want to do these things so that when I get to this point, right? Now, that becomes a faith walk with us. This is why the Bible said, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Because I don't know the end.
Yep. But
God does.
Mm-hmm.
And we sing the song all the time. He knows my future. Right. Yep. So I don't know. So I have to trust his process. And when I saw that line, I said that is and when I go out and do conferences on this is the one thing that I'm going to emphasize that to people, that wherever you are, whatever situation you're in, whatever you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And it comes to, and I don't want to take up all the time talking because it's supposed to be, but it comes to understanding, right? Mm-hmm. There is, and I explained this to our church a couple of Sundays ago, and I've explained it a couple of times. But the Bible makes a distinction between the sinner and the ungodly, right? And this is why Paul could be in the place that he wanted to be, or the place he needed to be, and he should have been even before his Damascus Road experience, because Paul he may have been, you say, a sinner. The word in the Bible, the word sinner means missing the mark. And God can work with you.
Yes.
But if you're ungodly, that means I'm not even attempting to hit the mark.
That's right.
So there's a huge difference there, right? So if you are a believer, God started working with you. And I think I drive this point home, is that God started working with us a long time before we actually went into the church and went down to the altar. We have a comment here. Sister Regina said, Pastor Razor, you preached that when I first came to FHC, and that message quickened my soul. It stirred something in me and it stuck. Trust the process. Trust the process. But now you made a point in the forward that the reason purpose is such a difficult thing is because it requires a change in behavior to arrive at the definition of purpose. Elaborate on that a little bit for us.
We're so let me just say, just so we're all on the same page, God has put it, because he got tired of me saying, oh, I think that's in the Bible. So he said, just sit down and read the Bible. So I'm in don't laugh at me, Pastor. I'm in Deuteronomy right now. And it's so funny because it's when God says we have stiff necks, I mean, like I'm literally like I'm reading in this if anyone who's listening who's never just sat and read the Bible from beginning to end, I'm telling you, it's better than a Tyler Perry sitcom. I mean, it's just the scandals and the drama and the betrayal and the lies and it is so amazing. But people really just don't like change. It makes them so very uncomfortable. It makes them so uncomfortable. And that's what life is all about. Like, you know, what's that comment? If you want to make God laugh, make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is that it changes, and our job is to have faith in his plan, not our plan.
Exactly.
It's for us to have faith that when the change happens, that the change is happening for our good.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that we have it placed in our head the way that we think it's supposed to go, because we done lived a couple of years, we done some things, we saw some things, we done mastered some things. So clearly we can get this figured out. And God's like, no, boo-boo, you can't.
Right.
And I know that you can, and it's okay, because that's my lane.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to have faith and trust that everything is happening the way that it happens. And when you need to pivot, you need to be okay with the pivot. And the problem is that we get stuck in the pivot. And I tell people all the time, you just pray and pivot. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have to do. It really is just that simple. But the idea that if we wanted it to come on the 12th and God's like, no, it's not coming on the 20th, then we want to have our lip poked out until the 20th because we wanted it right then and there, instead of us understanding that if he wants it on the 20th, it's because there's something happening between the 12th and the 20th that needs to happen in order for you to get it. And so I tell my clients all the time, you have to have this mentality that you believe that everything is working in your favor. Mm-hmm. Everything is working in your favor. I tell myself that all the time. Everything that is happening is working because God wants me to have a joyful life. So if something goes left when I wanted it to go right, it's because if it would have gone the way that I wanted it to, it would have prevented me from having what it is that God wants me to have, which is a joyful life. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a mindset change. Like, you have to pause and not be reactive. Our body wants to be reactive to everything that happens. And so we go straight into the emotional part. Like, that's not what I wanted. I wanted it this way. I didn't want it that way. And God's just like, dude, chill. Like, I got you.
Okay.
Like, of all the people to have your back, that's the person you want to have your back. You don't have to worry about anything else. But it's just one of the things that I did a couple of years ago was I started telling people to voice their miracles, because we need to remember that miracles happen. We need to remember that they happen every day, throughout the day, around the clock. If the world is spinning, then a miracle is happening. So you don't have to worry about the how. All you have to do is have faith that it will happen. And then all of that is null. You don't have to worry about anything else, because when change happens, you're just going to lean into the change.
Okay, and then now see, there's a couple of things then when you're talking to my sister used to call me the cornbread preacher from Arkansas, right? But you just hit a couple of points there. One of them is from Hebrews, where it say, without faith, it's impossible to please God, because he that come to him must first believe that he is, right? So if we're going to trust the process, we have to have that faith. We have to have confidence in God, right? Because I mean, really, and then the second thing is that a lot of this comes from us not understanding who we are. And you make this statement, and I've been teaching this to my church for the last 3 years, ever since the Lord told me to bring them together during the pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic, and teach them, is the power of the soul. Mm-hmm. Right. And you said miracles happen every day. Mm-hmm. Of course they happen every day, because we are souls that live in a supernatural world. Yeah. Our bodies live in the natural world, but our souls live in the supernatural world. And so miracles are going to happen. Things that cannot be explained in the natural, simply because we are souls. We are living souls, and their souls are not limited to the constraints of the natural, the body. The soul can do things. And I mentioned this, and we've had so many successes, right? And I'm going to have some of the people, as I look at this here tonight, some of the people come on in the future that I'm going to have talking about some of the things that's going on, and some of the things that happen. But when you understand, and I wrote this book, Winning Spiritual Wars, and I explained the power of the soul, and you read it, then you sent me this book, where what was the name of the book? You sent me the link to the book. Outwitting the Devil.
Oh yeah.
Now this guy was saying the same thing, but and he wrote this book in the 1900s, but he did not understand the soul part of it. Mm-hmm. He just called it the other me,
right,
or the other self. That's right. What he called it. He knew that there was another self, mm-hmm. and that if he relied on that other self, he could overcome anything mm-hmm. that the body came up against, or that opposed in the natural world. And the other self always took him to victory. Yep. The other self always, I mean, he may have struggled in some things and some process, but the other self always, if he followed the other self, mm-hmm. you know, if he followed the other self, and this gets to another point you go into in the foreword. You said that a lot of times we think that we're going to discover our purpose comfortably.
Right. Wouldn't that be nice?
You know, we're gonna discover our purpose comfortably, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just gonna walk into it, and everything's gonna fall in place comfortably. But that's not how anybody ever discovers their purpose.
Nope.
It comes in the midst of obstacles and opposition and things that even as this guy said in that book, where you have to learn to rely on your other self.
Yes.
Which we know is the soul. You mm-hmm. have to learn to rely on your soul because it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, actually getting to the point to where you walk in your purpose, it won't always be comfortable.
Right. Right. Life is, I mean, you know, and it's funny, I was having a conversation with my sister today when I was telling her that this side, I like this side. This side is so comfortable. When I say this side, me understanding what my job is versus what God's job is, mm-hmm. because we tend to take on things that's not ours. Like we will pray and then we will worry ourselves half to death. And God's like, why are you worried? You done already prayed. Mm-hmm. Let it go. I got this. Go do something else. Go take a nap. Go do something. But we get so wrapped up in us having to figure out, like we're planning a trip to, you know, a road trip, and we want to mark all the places how it's going to be. And God's like, that's not how it's going to work, because even if you marked it, it's not going to go that way. Okay. But I know the way that it's going to go, and I'm going to give you the protection that you need along the way. I'm going to introduce you to the right people. Even those situations that's uncomfortable, they're going to be uncomfortable for a reason, because I'm going to teach you something in that uncomfortable space. And we get so wrapped up in the emotions. Our emotions are not the guide to let us know that if we're doing something right or wrong. Our emotions is how we're responding to what we see. And so if we feel sad, we're like, well, clearly I'm sad, so God doesn't want me to do this. No, wait, what? No.
And you snapped me to when we were down in Texas, and we said, well, we had already had our flights and stuff ready to leave the next day. And we thought, boy, it'd be nice to stay here on Sunday, because we'll just go and see, go to Joel Osteen's church. Just want to see what it was about, right? Just see what's about. And we were sitting there at the dinner table talking, and I said, oh man, that's going to cost a whole lot to try to change the flights at the last moment and all that. And you looked at me and you said, Pastor, what if you want to stay, you just got to say, I'm going to stay, and then just jump into it. He said, you may call the airline and they may give you a refund because you stayed, because you decide to take a flight on this day, and so we look at the way we see it, and that's not the way God sees it, right? Nope. And so that's why we have to trust the process, and it doesn't get comfortable. And another thing that you said, and I really, really, really want you to elaborate on this, is that we have to approach moving into our purpose with innocence and the imagination of a child. What were you saying there?
It's I'm so silly. I mean, you know that. I'm so silly. And it's because I'm so silly, everything becomes not so serious. Like everything is just like whatever, just like a child. Like when you're a little kid, when you're a 3-year-old, and if you go to a 3-year-old and you say, we something changed. A 3-year-old is not about to go into the, why this, why that. Like we overanalyze. And so you have to go back to that space where you just allow, like when you were a child, you just allow the experience. That's why it was so, on the summertime, you have these adventures and you would just go and you didn't know what the day was going to bring. Like even now I tell folks, I'm like, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist because I have so many things. I have do. When you're a kid, you're just working off of your id. You're just going with what feels good. And so when you're in your purpose, you have to pay attention when you're looking for your purpose or paying attention to your purpose, because even when people say, I don't know my purpose, it's not that they don't know, they're just not paying attention. It's there.
And that's what, you know what, before you go on, that's one of the things I kind of want to bring out in the book, right?
Yeah.
Is that God started this a long time ago. And that's a good point, because in that activity, I have people to look back over their lives.
That's right.
And try to do, because you're right. They're not paying attention.
Yeah. Because we're leaning again on our own understanding of what it is. And one way I tell folks, one way to help you get on that path of you understanding your purpose is understanding that our job here is to honor God. So if you even lean just into that, like maybe you're supposed to be a graphic designer, maybe you're supposed to be a web designer, maybe you're supposed to be an astronaut, I don't know. But if you lean into your relationship with God, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're making the wrong or right decision, because he's going to guide you. And because you have that childlike, you're allowing him to guide you. And you're not allowing him to guide you with frustration. You're allowing him to guide you with curiosity, like the curiosity of a child. Like children are just curious and they're imaginative and they can't wait to see what's going to happen. And so it's like I approach everything in my life like it's an adventure. Okay. Everything is just a really big adventure. I just want to see I don't know what's going to happen. And that's okay. I don't need to know what's going to happen, because if I look back, I didn't know any of that stuff. If someone would have told me I was going to be living in Texas, I would have not believed that ever. But God led me here. And I'm happy that he said, I talked to God and I was like, I'm ready to leave. And he was like, you can leave. And it wasn't until, and this was last year, I had a conversation with God and I said, I think I'm ready to leave Texas. And he's like, all right, you can leave. And I was just so excited. He said, I can leave, but he didn't tell me where to go. And I was like, but you said I can leave. He's like, you can. I was like, well, where am I going? He was like, we're not there yet. Just wait. Mm-hmm. So it's been a year. It's been practically a year that he just recently told me, like, okay, you can leave. You can go here. And I was just like, but when people, so up until this time, I've been telling people I'm leaving Texas. They're like, where are you going? I was like, I don't know. God hasn't told me yet. Mm-hmm. And so that alone makes people uncomfortable. We're like, here we go with Dawn again. She Dawn in these adventures, I don't have to worry about where I'm going, because I know that once he reveals where I'm going, I know that that's where I'm going to be. And it's going to be okay. And I'll be there until he tells me otherwise. And if I'm going there, it's because he has things that I need to do there. So it's really our mentality of us understanding that we're working for him. If I'm delayed at the airport, I understand that means that more likely he's going to have me talking to somebody. And he normally does. If I want to sit somewhere on the plane and he has me sitting someplace else on the plane, it's because he wants me to be there. And it always reveals that that's a reason. If one Uber passed me and another one comes, it'd be that Uber driver who needed to talk to somebody about a small business or whatever. And it's just if we just understand that we're on duty,
24/7.
We're at work. Mm-hmm. We are at work around the clock. And so if we just take our ego out of it with I don't know what I want, don't worry about what you want. Mm-hmm. Because what I know is that God will align the desires of your hearts with his needs. Mm-hmm. He's not going to put you into a space that makes you uncomfortable, because that's not going to serve him. He needs to get you in a space where you can give your special gifts, your special talents, whatever package he has for you to deliver to whomever he has you delivering it to, all of that will align. You just have to trust that it's going to align. It may not look the way that you thought it was going to look, but you have to trust that that's the way that it's supposed to be.
And Kathy said, if you're mining for gemstones, they won't be sitting on top of the rubble. Right.
Man, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now here's the thing that I bring up in the book is that, and this is why this doesn't necessarily happen the way we think it happened. And you have to approach it with the innocence of a child, just as you said, right? Is that you have to get started doing something.
Yeah.
And if you are looking to God and you get started and it's not the way that God wants you to do, and you're looking to God, he will redirect you.
That's right.
You know, I spoke about this once with Apostle Paul. He knew what he was supposed to be doing. That was, he was supposed to be preaching and evangelizing, right? And so one time, he didn't know where, but he knew he was. So he just started going toward the city, and he said, then the Holy Spirit pulled him back. That wasn't the way he was supposed to be going, right?
Right.
So when you are looking for a purpose, you're not sitting there.
That's right.
You're not sitting there. And that's another thing I try to bring out of this book. There are so many skills, and there's so much expertise that you have acquired through the years. And it wasn't by happenstance. It wasn't by coincidence. It was because God what had you exactly right where you needed to be for that time.
Yes.
And some of the stuff was not good.
Right. That's right.
You know, I look at where I'm at now, and some of the things that I had to deal with in my life, they were not good.
Right.
But when I look back on it, I saw that this was God doing this. You know,
right.
This was God doing this multiple times. I look back and say, so when I look back over, and if I do that activity that's in that workbook, and I look back over take three of the things of the most difficult times that I have, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I objectively look at the things the skills and the things that I needed to make it through those times, and I look at where I'm at now, and I say, that's exactly what I'm using to do what I'm doing now.
That's right.
Then I realized it was the process that God had me in all the time.
And that's what gratitude and appreciation. If you have gratitude, just have gratitude. You don't have to like it. Just be appreciative. Just be appreciative of the little things that when you wake up, the fact that you woke up lets you know that there's still purpose on your life.
Exactly.
When I get up in the morning and it's 6:30 and I live in Houston and the humidity is on fire and I'm walking my dog, I'm not thinking about the sweat. I'm thanking God that my legs are moving so swiftly so that I can get home faster. I'm focused on everything that I possibly can to remember that this is the space and time that God has me in, and there's a reason for it. And I'm just appreciative and honored that he has chosen me to help him with his plan. Like, can we just sit in that space for a little bit? There are so many people that don't make it to 46, that didn't have the opportunities that I've had, that didn't get the insights that I received. And so how dare I complain about anything? Because it can be something so much different than what it is right now. And if we would just take a moment to just be appreciative of the Lord, you wouldn't even have time for the frustration. You really wouldn't. You wouldn't even have room for it.
Mm-hmm. And so it's 8:06. The time really goes quick. So if there's one thing that you get out of tonight, trust the process. Mm-hmm. Now, if you had advice, because really, trusting the process is easy to say. It's not really easy to do. And I'm saying this as a pastor. A couple of years ago, I was really faced with I mean, I was faced with a situation in the middle of the pandemic, and nobody at the church probably knew it, but they probably saw that I was behaving. There was something different about me. They probably didn't put their foot in, and I'm praying and I'm seeking God, and every time I pray, that I keep hearing the Spirit saying, "Don't worry about it. You just do this. You just do this. You just." And I needed a large amount of money. I mean, I'm talking about I needed over 6 figures. And I'm saying, I don't know how I'm going to get it. And if I don't get it, I'm ruined. And I kept hearing the Spirit say, don't worry about it. You just do what I've told you to do, right? And I needed to have this envelope, this check to these people by 5 o'clock on a day, right? And here it is. A week before that, I have nothing. And the time is coming up, nothing. And I finally, I said, oh God. And the Lord just said, every time I try to pray, the Lord said, just do you do this. And at about 4 o'clock on the last day, I got a call. I mean, literally, I got a call.
I know.
And I was able to get to the office at like 4:55, and they were closing at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And when that happened, I said to God, God, I will never, ever, ever discount your word or doubt your word, because I had gotten to that point, and I had really, at about noon that day, I had started saying, okay, boy, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to do this. I really think I'm going to have to sell my house, and I'm going to have to do all these things. And at 4 o'clock, I got a call. And I was able to make it to that office with what I needed to have for them at 4:55, and they were closing at 5. Trust the process.
You know, I did a vlog a couple of months ago where I said that the Oscar goes to God. God does not mess around when he is creating a testimony. I mean, he split a sea.
Yeah.
He split a sea. I mean, so it's going to be in the 11th hour, because when you tell that testimony to that next person, it's going to give them that they need to feel their soul. That's something that they need to know, that even in the 11th hour, he can still come through and will come through. And so it's funny because Larita and I talk about this all the time, like, because it would be, it'd be like the clock is ticking, countdown. The clock is ticking. And it's just like, you have to remember that we're doing this to praise God. We're doing this for his glory. He's like, I don't even ask that much of y'all. I'm not even asking that much of you.
Exactly.
That's it. Just trust me and have faith. He's like, I made mountains.
Exactly.
I made the sun, oceans. Clearly, I can get you 6 figures. It's nothing. It's a blink. It's not a big deal to me. I'm God. And that's the thing that I think that the most frustrating, even as when I was reading numbers, I was just like, Lord, I don't even know why you even mess with us. Because every time he would do something, the people would come back and be like, I don't know why we should have just stayed in Egypt. And I'm like, he just
exactly.
He just did a miracle for you. And now you complaining again. And that's what happens, is that we have to remind ourselves of people who get to that space where they get frustrated. They're thinking like, it's not going to happen. There's no way. All you got to do is look back on your life. That's it. All you have to do is look back on your life, and you can see it, because there are testimonies throughout your life. And what has helped me tremendously is strengthening my relationship with God. Because what happens is that we like to wait until it's a big monumentous type situation. Then we be like, you know what, I'm going to pray. Nah, bro. What you need to be doing is having a relationship with God on a regular basis, so that you can recognize his voice. So that when you are praying, when you're silent, because I tell people praying is talking to God, meditating is listening to God. So you can pray, and then be quiet so that you can hear him. And what we do, instead of us being quiet, is we're complaining, we're worried, we're nagging, we're this, that, and the other. And God's just like, you've already prayed. I got you. Just chill out. So my greatest advice that I can give to anyone who's looking for their purpose being clearly revealed to them is to lean into your relationship with God. It is by
and you know what? Go on.
No, I'm saying it's by no mistake that God has me completely engulfed in the word right now, because it has helped me so much. And even in my forgiveness of myself, because I was like, yo, Joker's been doing this for like ever. Like,
Mhm.
they've been doing this forever. So
Okay.
it's not, when if I have a worry or a doubt, it's not new to God.
Right.
He's just like, dude, y'all been doing this since the beginning of the time, Dawn. I know. Yes, you worry. Yeah. Go on. You fine. So
Mhm.
you just have to, you just have to have faith and know that he is God, and that's it.
And that there's been times in my life when like you say, you just you fall in and you lean on God, and you look back later and you know it's God.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, it was God. And this is why it's so important to be a believer, because sometimes your other self, as the other guy said, right?
Yeah.
I explained it as your soul, but your other self will say, "Do this." And look, the old folks used to say, "My right mind." I should have listened to my right mind, right?
That's
I
right.
should have listened. We have God leading us and guiding us and all this. Now, sometimes I remember when I first came up to Chicago, my mother had been murdered, and I moved up with my aunt. And I started going to church with her. I grew up in the old Church of God in Christ, but she wasn't Church of God in Christ. I started going to church with her. And we were sitting in the service, and I moved up here, and this was a whole different world for me, because I was thinking, I remember I started looking for jobs, and I couldn't get jobs. And my aunt would drive me to jobs, to look to places to fill out for, applications for employment. And I would see guys hanging on the street, and I said, "Well, when did they go to work? What do they do?" And she said, "They don't." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" And it bothered me. And so I was sitting at home watching television, and I saw this commercial about DeVry Institute of Technology. And it kept coming on. I said, "Boy, maybe that should be." And I thought about it, and I said, no. And how am I going to pay for it? And how is this going to happen, right? And I went to church, and they had a speaker there and I'm new. And in the middle of his message, he walks out of the pulpit. He stands in front of me, and he said, "God said for you to go to that school." And then he walks back up into the pulpit and finishes his message. He just looked at me and said, "God said for you to go to that school." I went to and I said, "Okay." I mean, how would he know? How did he know I was even thinking? So I immediately went up to DeVry, signed up, went to the school. God made sure it was taken care of. All the student loans I have, they've been paid for years. He just took it. And just that one thing led me to being a technology SME, with opening up a community technology center, doing things. And it just led me, and that put me into an environment where when I was a technology SME, and it was time to leave there, and I didn't know where to go. And God told me to go over to this company. So I'm thinking I'm going over there to be an engineer. And when I get there, the HR person said, "Well, look, if you want the engineering job, it's yours." She said, "But your resume was just sitting on my desk, and the vice president of training and education came over and saw it and said, 'Well, how come we can't have a person like that? We could use it, right?'" And she said, "Well, he don't know anything about training." He said, "Yeah, but he knows everything else. We're training that." And when she said, "So if you want to take this job," and all I can account, the reason I didn't take the engineering job and took the training job, the reason today, the reason that I know I took that is because of God.
That's right.
Because he was preparing me to write. He was preparing me to create objectives. He was preparing me to put lesson plans together. I had to go and get certified for all of that stuff. And when I got to where I was very, very effective and efficient in doing that, and companies were asking TLF, "No, we want Henry to put our course together. We want him to do that." And just when I got that, then God said, "Okay, now take that and use that in the church." and what you're doing there. And I look back and I say, oh, you couldn't tell me why I left the company that I went to go to Tell Labs. Anyway, I took a pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
But it was God directing me.
That's right.
And then from there, things just go. And that's why to this day, I don't worry about it. Whatever we have set up, whatever the Lord puts on my heart to do, I say, let's do it, right? Yep. We don't worry about how we're going to pay for it. We don't worry how we're going to do this. We're going to, and when I said, well, Lord, we on Ashland here, we done redid the whole building. We don't have a parking lot. We need a place with a parking lot and all this. And I'm sitting at work one day, and the Spirit said, okay, go online and look at that place. And I looked at it. I said, oh, that's nice, blah, 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 you know. And I contacted them. They said it was under contract. I said, oh, okay. Come back. But the Spirit kept saying, look at it, look at it, look at it. I looked at it again, and I called. They said, the contract just fell through. Boom. Do you want it? Now, let me tell you how God is. We went to visit the church. When I first went, I went over there and sat in their services. Then we went back. When we went to visit the church, there had to be about 8 or 10 other churches that had more money than we had. They had been established a lot longer than we were and everything. And they were there watching. They were there also looking at the church. The realtor came over to me because it was a bidding war. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I'm going to come to you last, right? And so he comes over to me and he said, I tell you what, how much do you think it would cost if I wanted to get a couple of tickets to a Cubs game now? And the Cubs was like on their way to winning, blah, blah, blah. He said, what do you think it would cost? What do you think it would cost? And I said, I don't know. Probably $1,000 or so. He said, maybe $1,500, right? And he said, yeah. Now, he said, now what did we list this for? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, this is the price of it. He said, I bet you if somebody added another $1,500 to that price. He said, now I'm not telling you what the bid is. He said, but I'm not telling you just what the bid. Well, what he was telling me in so many words that the highest bid was at like $1,400 over. And if I did 15, he was going to close it off and that was going to be it. And so God just gave us favor at every level because of the process.
That's right.
Because trust in the process. And it just worked out at every level. Look, so if we come away from tonight with one thing, and I look at you, I remember you in Chicago, and I'm looking at you now, you're the CEO of this corporation. I'm going down to Houston. You're taking me and my wife to steak houses, and we're eating $100 steaks and $25 asparagus and all these things. I'm like, Lord have mercy. But I mean, that is the power of purpose, right?
That's right.
That's exactly what God does, and we trust the process. So I'm just so excited. I'm going to have you to come back at some point in time, especially when we start going through that activity.
Yes.
That's in the workbook. I'm going to have you to start to come back on that. If you haven't gotten your book, last week Amazon was out. And so I see then they started getting them in, and they wasn't getting a lot of them in. They get one in. I see it was one available, more on the way. And a couple of days later, it said 2 available, more on the way, 3 available, more on the way. But it looks like they had about 7 or 8 of them, but then somebody purchased some more of them again. So the number dropped back down to what they had available, but they keep saying more on the way. I don't have any yet, but my wife, we know we have to get some. They're going to have to give us some because we're going places, right? But the Lord gave us this book, and after winning spiritual wars, and to impact lives. And now I understand why God put me from a young kid. He had me studying the Bible, and instead of getting a commentary from somebody else, I remember God had me studying the Gideon's Bible from the hotel. There's nothing in there but the word. And I was creating connection points between this scripture and that scripture and this scripture and pulling this all together. And now I understand why God had me doing this, because he knew that I was going to be writing these things.
That's right.
And putting these things together, because we're in a time now where knowledge, where there's a need for knowledge. God said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And let me go through some of these comments. Dr. Eddie Phillips here, he's the historian. He said, I truly believe that this is a lesson for all. We need to give it up to God and work according to his will, because we don't know, right? And if we just accept what God does and trust the process, things work out. Things come together. And you said it right. It's not that you don't know what your purpose is, people, that you're listening, because God has been giving you hints and nudges and putting you all along. You just haven't been paying attention. Yeah. That's exactly why in the workbook, right? In the workbook, I give you, and I know this is my engineering spirit coming out, right? I give you a flow chart with decision blocks that you can follow, and that'll lead you to one or two places. But once you follow when you turn the page from that, if you don't know what your purpose is, it gets into a comprehensive activity. And you start answering these questions, and you will arrive at what God has put you here for. And so the question will always be, what if that isn't it? If that isn't it, but you've shown God your willingness to seek it, God will tell you what it is.
Yes. One step. Take one step. Just take one step. And all you need to do is just try. You have to try. And it's crazy I tell people all the time, it's like our lives are like these fragmented puzzle pieces. And then when you start leaning into your relationship with God, with wanting clarity on your purpose in your heart, it just starts coming together. And then all of a sudden, all those fragmented pieces, now you can see what the actual picture is. And when that happened for me, I was like, well, I'll be doggone. Like
it starts to make sense.
It all makes sense.
It starts
all
to make
sense. Yes.
It starts to make sense. So okay, we've been out of time for a while, but this has been a great discussion. And just in case, because there may be a couple other pastors on here, because I know there was a pastor asked me over the weekend about having some type of representation or somebody to kind of give him some direction on marketing and on the fly, the stuff that you're beating me, you and Michelle Hudson beat me up all the time about creating my own flyers and all that stuff. And he was said he needs the same thing. And he said, so if you can point me in the direction of people that can do that. And I was going to talk to Shelly because Sunday, but she either got out of there or I didn't run into her. But there are a lot of churches and a lot of pastors and leadership that need these services, right? Yes. They need and I need them. I need y'all to stop beating me up, because I wake up in the middle of the night, have an idea, and then I try to create something.
I know. And God bless you. God bless you. I'm just saying that maybe your strengths lie someplace else, and maybe you can just allow the artist to, do the artwork. Yeah. I'm just,
Okay. Okay, so it was just great having you. We're going to have you back. Especially when we start working on that activity. I would like for you to come back and be a part of this.
Absolutely. Anything for you, Pastor. Anything at all.
If you all want to know one thing tonight, trust the process and approach this with the innocence and the imagination of a child. And that look, when you read the book and you read the foreword, you will actually see how she wrote this, how she put all this together. It's been great. It's been great. Look, I see Dr. Triplett said it's a great session tonight. Look, our plan is to have great sessions. I'm going to have some of these, each week. I'm trying to do this so that I'm just not talking. I'm trying to get people that are leaders in their areas, and they come in and actually give some counsel and some advice and talk about purpose. Talk about purpose. We talked about everything else in the church and in detail except for purpose.
That's right.
Purpose. So we trust the process. Okay. So
great job. You did. You have to get this book. You have got to get this book. If you're searching or even not searching, it's still helpful, because the reality is that it's all a journey. It's a journey that doesn't end until you leave this space. Mm-hmm. And so even though I know, I know the space that I'm in right now, I don't know the future, and that's okay. But the book and the workbook is a great guide, highly recommended, great gift, great Father's Day gift. Just anybody, just highly, highly recommend. I think you did an amazing job. Amazing.
I think God did the right thing by giving me the right person to write the foreword. Because I'm telling you, that one sentence, when I read the foreword, and I said, boy, I wish I had just wrote that like that in the book when I was going through these things. And the Spirit in me said, it's in the book. It's in the book, right? It's in the book. It starts in the foreword, right? Yeah. But trust the process. And if you trust the process, have confidence that you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. Don't look back in the regrets. Don't look back and say, boy, if only I had done this, if only I had done this, only I had done this here. You were believing and you were looking to God. You are exactly where you ought to be. So look forward. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Look forward. So thank you, Dawn, for coming in, and we are headed out. Look, let me say this before we leave. We are going to have our Dominion Impact Conference this year, November 3rd to the 5th. And the focus, the theme is going to be the power of purpose. And we're setting this up. And I know someone last week from Arizona said, can we start registering? We're trying to get that set up now. We're going to identify what hotel we're going to be at that Saturday and that time we're going to do that and get our program set up so that we can start, people can start making plans to be here. But it's going to be an awesome time. Awesome time. Okay. So good night, everyone. We thank Dawn Callahan from Artistic Solutions Revised for being part of this tonight. And we're getting ready to call it a day. So I will see you all tomorrow night. We'll have Bible class and I will be there at the church. So God bless you all. Love you. Bye-bye.